session of the Cleveland City Council. And we begin today on Monday, November 22nd, with a very special presentation to the Cleveland High School Lady Raiders volleyball team. Another championship season, and I see coach, and I see athletic director, and I see principal. I'll let you guys arm wrestle on who wants to come up and get the podium. I heard her all the way up here.
Bob, Amy, Al.
You got you. You got you. The Tennessee trifecta. Okay, so I'm the shortest one to off camera. On behalf of the entire city council, we are so thrilled to present this to you, all the ladies of the team. We'll get a good group team picture here in a minute, but this says, whereas the 2023 Lady Raiders volleyball team highlights a 43-8 border championship season with a 23-match and 41-set win streak, undefeated in the postseason for the second year in a row, 9-0 matches, 27-set win streak, undefeated in the postseason for the second year in a row, and the only team in TSSAA history to go undefeated 4-0 match 12 sets. Are you on there? Coach, that's it? Okay. Tremendous individual honors, all district, all region. Kingsley McGowan, district region season MVP player of the year, surpassed 4,000 career assists. Kingsley, are you here? You gotta stand up when I read all this about you. All district tournament, Kingsley McGowan, Lauren Hurst, Addison Brock, Gunny Brock, Lily O'Brien. You gotta keep standing. District MVP, all region Lauren Hurst. Lily O'Brien, district MVP, all region Lily O'Brien. Addison Brock, Gunny Brock. Kingsley McGowan, regional MVP. All state Kingsley McGowan, Lauren Hurst. State tournament MVP. Congratulations to Coach Amy McGowan, the TACA District Coach of the Year. Yeah, let's clap for Coach. Daniel Millsap and Kristen McCallis. Congratulations to all the ladies and all the coaching staff. Now therefore, as the Mayor of Cleveland, on behalf of the entire City Council, we do hereby proclaim Monday, November 27th as Cleveland High School Lady Raiders Football Team Day all across the city of Cleveland. And we ask all of our citizens to congratulate this fine group of young ladies, Principal Bob Pritchard, Athletic Director Al Morris, and Coach Amy McGowan, signed Mayor Brooks. Congratulations. Very special. Principal, athletic director.
Second row. Come make the second row.
Lady Raider paparazzi.
That's a hard shot to get. This is why.
There he is.
What'd you say about me, Michelle? What'd you call me?
Nothing.
One more for the banner.
One more.
Sit down. You're in it. Sit down. You're in it.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, ladies.
Thank you very
much. Congratulations. We are the champions.
Hey, Amy. I want to ask a couple of questions for you, ladies. And you have your daughter who's, I think, a sophomore. You want to stay on. What's his name? Congratulations.
I got more coming, I like that.
I was gonna say the stop.
All these sleeveless championship was built on.
We had a great break. That's right. That's right. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, we had a great presentation there for the Cleveland Lady Raiders. And Coach Hughes had to remind them that all the leadership was at Bradley High School. All right, next, Mr. Fivas on special presentations and public comments is a presentation on code enforcement activities. And we'll turn it over to you, sir.
Robert Burnell, who is here, will give an update. This is the council requested to get some information on code enforcement, and I think it's actually would be a good conversation.
Thank you, Mr. Barnell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. A couple of weeks ago when we met, there was some significant discussion surrounding code enforcement and code enforcement activities. My staff and I, we put together a couple of thoughts, just a couple of slides. But as I'm talking or looking at anything, if specific questions about certain aspects of this come up, just interrupt me, because I don't want to miss the opportunity to kind of go through each one. Code enforcement, I find, is probably one of the more difficult things that I deal with. Each of you, as well as all the staff, we all know somebody who is going to get a citation or a placard or a notification about some level of code enforcement issue on a piece of property they may own. We all also know someone who complains about those things. So we have property owners across the city. In some cases, they may not know the rules. In some cases, it may be a situation of age or health or other things where the property falls into a state of disrepair, or they've got a car that's been sitting there. I personally have had a truck sitting in my driveway before, which I received a code enforcement letter on. This was 15 years ago, but it happens to everybody. So I kind of wanted to just talk about the aspects briefly. This is a citywide situation, and on both sides of it, we deal with it. And I've talked to each of you as well as other members of the staff. Hey, my friend got this letter, or hey, there's an issue at this address and we need to look at it. So I think a lot of the questions that maybe come to y'all's minds is really, how does this process work? And there are different types of cases that we cite, and the different types of cases have different requirements. So the answer is not black and white. It's dependent on a number of criteria. So I'm going to go over just a couple of facts about 2023. That's what we're going to talk about right now. Dating back to January, you can see the most common on the right, high grass, weeds. We're almost at 700. That was all during those growing months. Junk vehicles or inoperable, dismantled vehicles, 190, et cetera, et cetera. You see it. One thing that I really like about this slide is it shows us we've had more than 1,750 open cases in 2023 to date. And this was as of last week. That number's gone up since, but the code enforcement staff also has, they routinely drive our right-of-ways or roads, picking up illegal signs that people put, or they put them on power poles, traffic light poles, things like that. We have over 600 of those collected. 76 municipal court citations issued out of 1,750 cases. I'll get back to that at the end. But that's an interesting number, and I'll kind of explain why in a moment. So in the sense of what they do, this is just a list. It's not a all-inclusive list. It's a general list of items. Tents, temporary structures, illegal dumping, site obstruction, stagnant water, mowing, all these things are items outside of those top 4 that they also look for, deal with, and are in charge of the policing of, in a sense, on a monthly basis. So short-term rentals, we just passed that. I'm really good at adding things to their list. That's one of the things I'm good at, and they thank me every day for it. So, being sarcastic a little bit there, but they're doing a great job with it all. Process questions are the most common, I think, and that's probably where each of you have thoughts, questions, or maybe a little bit of confusion, and that's okay. The practices that we utilize now have been fairly consistent over the past 15 to 20 years. And they are based on city ordinance, state law, as well as recommendations from the various codes that we have, whether it's the building code, property maintenance code. We have all of these things adopted or as appendix, and they recommend certain timeframes. And then the state also has some language about how long we can give people. And then another component of that is what I would call institutional knowledge. Because as a code enforcement department, our number one job, what we want is compliance. Now, there are various ways to get compliance. If we can avoid going to court, that's what we would like to do. Because in the end, we're dealing with the citizen, we're dealing with the taxpayer, we're dealing with someone who may not know that they were in violation. We want to work with them through the end of the process. If that doesn't happen, we do send them to court. But we give people an opportunity to be in compliance with city codes. So, verbal written notice, that's what you're going to get first. That written notice will have a reinspection date. It can range from 10 to 14 days, all the way up to 30, depending on the severity of the situation. So, property maintenance, I think, is a big one that we're seeing. Oftentimes, we'll give them that complaint, and 9 times out of 10, most of that stuff is taken care of within that window. A lot of times, the uniqueness of a personal situation that we're dealing with, we'll go there and a percentage of the work is completed. Our objective, again, is compliance at the end. If they are working towards achieving that, we are going to grant an extension. For various reasons, but the primary reason is we're moving in the right direction. That extension will not be a full 2 months or things like that. It's business days we're talking about, Monday through Friday, because that's the way the calendars and citations work. So the written notice, and then if you get an extension, or if you've done nothing, you're getting a citation, you're going to be in court. The judge will tell you which direction to go at that point. And that period of time can be 14 days typically. So you get it on the docket and they get in front of the judge. But like I said, most of the time people are beginning, if we've got several cars or we've got some dishwasher, appliances sitting out in the yard, they're starting to move those in, they're cleaning up their site. we're gonna give them an extension, maybe 15 days, maybe 30, come back. Most of the time, that job is finished, not always, most of the time it is. At the end, we want the compliance, we want it clean, and then once they do come into compliance, whether it's through court order or through staff working with these individuals on a time frame that works for them. Like I said, it could be health-related, age-related, job-related, there's a number of issues that come up. We've got to be cognizant of those situations and understanding of people's personal lives and what they can deal with at one time. We get compliance, that property stays on a reinspection list for 12 months. So monthly, they're going by it, making sure it's staying in compliance, things like that. This is what I was talking about at the beginning, 1,750 cases, 76 went to court. We have a 96% compliance rate. That means they didn't go to court. That means staff got them where they needed to be 96% of the time at over 1,750 cases. That's a good number. It may not have been in 2 weeks, it may not have been in 30 days, but it was definitely within the 45-day window, give or take, with extensions and understanding. By district, you can see we just kind of broke the numbers out. Really, it's pretty consistent. It's going to be dependent on several factors. You all know what those factors are, rental properties, things like that. You're going to have a higher concentration. So, in a sense, we have a procedure, we have policies. Sometimes it does take 30 to 45 days. Yes, it does. But our objective is to get them compliant without going and putting them in front of a judge and citing them. We want to be good neighbors to our people and work with them through that process. 96% of the time, we're successful. That other 4%, we let the judge handle, and it goes from there. It can go on up to other courts as well. Issues that we have when it comes to tall grass. We've talked about several locations where we've got stormwater ponds or this or that that are not taken care of. That's an issue that was created when that development occurred 25 years ago. So we had 4 or 5 lots, and they all own part of this pond. So if we're going to lean it and we're going to mow it, you know, the one kind of approach that we look at from a city standpoint is we're not necessarily in the lawn mowing business. That's not what we want to do. So we're going to work with those residents the best we can until we can't. And then at some point we'll spray it for weeds. It still doesn't look kept. It still doesn't look the way we want it to, but it's not as highly overgrown as it would have been in other situations. If you've got 5 people you're dealing with, each of them's got a percentage, you break that out and lean each property and do all those things. We spend a lot more money than we're bringing in, and in the end, it's the same problem's going to come back the next year until we get these people to realize that that's their responsibility. And that does take time, and that's what we're trying to do. I don't know if a lot of this information is really answering the specific questions you have, or if it's giving you at least a little bit of perspective about the thin line that we're trying to walk here, but I'm happy to answer any specific questions.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. I was gonna say, Councilman Webb has actually asked for it, but he's gonna let you.
Well, yeah, and if you would, just kind of go through the timetable. From the time you're notified, say how long does it take, on an average, that you have someone out to,
Within 24 hours, if we get a complaint, we are on site.
Okay.
Unless there is a situation of somebody being out sick for 3 or 4 days.
And at that point, then what happens?
They receive a letter, and a house visit if possible. Not everybody will answer their door, but, a placard saying, you're in violation of this code, section, et cetera, whatever it is specific to. You have so many days, 21 days, depending on the severity of it, to clean up this site. And a reinspection will be done on this date. If it's not in compliance, you will be sent to court. Here's a number you can call if you have questions, that kind of thing.
Hopefully, everybody wants to be a good neighbor
Well,
and comply.
And that, you know,
Okay.
that's, we see that most of the time, we've got people who are like, yes, I agree, let me get this cleaned up. It's gonna take me time.
So if they don't comply,
If they ignore us, et cetera, or they say, tough, whatever, then at that reinspection date, they are cited to court, which will be about a 2-week window. But, and that's only if they're saying, I'm not doing anything, that car is gonna sit there, or that dishwasher is gonna sit out in my front yard. It's,
okay, they go to court, then what happens?
well, the judge will make his decision, and that's his prerogative. So in some cases, he will give them extensions himself. In some cases, he cites them. There's various specifics, but that is the judge's purview. Our staff will present our case. They'll present their side, just like in a general court of law would be, and the judge makes a decision. Some cities have what they call kind of an inspection board, and it's an individual instead of a judge who would do it on a much quicker basis, but it's full-time staff that the city would have to pay for. That's the only alternative there. It's putting it in our municipal court.
Okay. So if the judge cites them, they pay a fine?
They do. It's at most $50.
Okay, so that they pay that fine, so then they don't do anything?
Then we recite and start all over.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
So it
the
could be
process starts all over, they've got so many days.
that's correct. Yeah, it starts all over. The way that state law sets it up, we kind of start from the beginning.
Councilman Ryder?
Robert, I'm just curious, is there any mechanism in place, let's say someone files a complaint about a location, that they can find out that all this process is taking place?
Well, there is some online resources that we're working towards making better. I'd like to, and we've talked about it as a staff, like, could we put this in GIS and have it kind of in, yes, that there's also a various number of people they can talk to. We do try to keep an information back and forth between our enforcement inspectors and the complainant, as opposed to me giving them information or someone else in my office. I'm here if there's complaints that escalate, but
I think that's what causes some issues sometimes, is someone has a problem with the neighbor down the street or something, and they do not know that this process is taking place, and they just assume that nobody has responded.
that it's being ignored. And my recommendation for you all to tell people when they say this is, number one, they can always call me. Yes, I will get an answer. But my answer is going to be having that inspector call first-hand information. We've recently we've moved people, and we're trying to get phone numbers right, and people don't know where to call and things like that. We're working, that's cleaning up pretty well. Our office works on kind of a schedule where our inspectors are out in the field a good bit, but when they all designate office hours to where they're in the office a couple hours, leave a message, they're gonna call you back. They do it. It's just knowing the right people to reach out to, and then waiting for that response. And in some cases, in one case in particular recently, we did have an inspector out sick for a week. So anybody who called about his cases didn't get a response probably for that week. And you know, that could be the same situation if I was out for a week with what I'm doing. So, but yes, we're working on ways to, I mean, there's a certain point where you get this stuff available online, but you don't want to go too far with, you know, how much do we put, where does it go, and can't even people find that once we do it. So, but the best way is to call that code enforcement inspector.
Do our inspectors actively look for issues when they're traveling around as opposed to waiting for someone to call?
Absolutely. I think I don't have a number, but the large percentage of all of those 1,750 cases were not complaints.
Okay.
I think it's probably pretty close to even, but they do continually inspect their specific districts, and they create cases where they see the violation themselves. Yes.
I'm sure that we all, from time to time, citations been issued or a letter's been issued.
Yeah.
And we get a call.
You do, yeah.
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
I got a letter I didn't mow, but my neighbor across the street, his grass is just as high as mine.
Right.
You know, why am I getting it and he's not?
Well, and he may be. It's just, he may say to his neighbor, no, I didn't get anything, or whatever, but they are fairly,
Consistent on
Yes.
areas?
yeah. Most of them, when it comes to like tall grass, they'll have a stick or a ruler. They'll just get out there. Once it reaches a certain point, that's the threshold, and they will, you know, whether or not, you know, like you said,
So
person wants to
on those
admit
you're
it.
talking about, they put a sticker, but they may not actually talk to the person.
Yeah, they try to, and if they don't have contact with the person, they will keep going back until they do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Councilwoman McKenzie?
A problem we've been talking about ever since I've been on the committee is tires.
Yes.
And in myself, just driving around different neighborhoods in Cleveland, I see people put tires out at the road. And of course, we don't pick those up, correct? I mean, our sanitation department doesn't pick those up, or Public Works.
No, they do not.
Because I see some of them laying there for weeks and
And
months.
oftentimes, that's when our code enforcement officers will coordinate with Public Works and say, you know, we need to notify these people.
So they don't actually notify the person that's put the tire
No,
out front?
they do eventually. In some cases, they're gonna leave it sitting there with the hope that the city will just get sick of it and pick it up anyway.
Right, that's kind of what I thought, but do they make them aware of, that there are ways to properly dispose of a tire? They can take it to the dump, or
Yeah.
there's certain pickup days? Because I don't think a lot of people know that there's pickup
Yeah,
twice a year.
no, and that's a great point. So many of these things that we deal with, a vast percentage of it is just, well, I didn't know. We can't expect the regular everyday citizen to necessarily have a clue about some of this stuff, like tires, just sitting them out. But yes, here's the process, here's where you need to take it, please do so.
So we do address that.
Yes, and information and public information is a big part of it, so. Mr. Mayor.
Vice Mayor Johnson?
Robert, not really show
Yes, sir.
Waste Connection.
Yes.
The Waste Connection pick up appliances on their route when they.
No, the Public Works picks up appliances if they're on their bulk pickup time and date.
Okay. We don't charge them for that. We don't charge them for that.
Not at this time.
Okay. So a lot of the people that are getting
I
cited.
should say, they are charged a fee
Right.
that goes on their utility bill, but we don't charge them per item.
Yeah, yeah. Just to make a run to pick up something.
Yeah.
Appliance. Okay. So we already provide that service if they would just make contact with Public Works or you councilman or and just ask us, and we can get in touch with Public Works and have somebody to go by and pick it up. I've done that.
Yeah, well, and I think a lot of cities may not offer near as much as we do. We're actually really supportive as a city in that field. And so the opportunities are there. Our job, our hope is that we get compliance. That's what we want. We're going to work with people. Everybody's got a story to tell, from one side or the other. And here I am in the middle with my staff, and we're just trying to get compliance while maintaining a balance and being consistent. We are consistent across the board with everybody we deal with. You're going to get the same thing, like you said, that your neighbors got or whatever. That's going to happen.
Mr. Barnell, I'm so grateful for this presentation, great information, and like you, I believe we are on the side of being too generous, and what concerns me is bad actors taking advantage of it. We hear about, especially East Cleveland, contractors presumably not in the city bringing large amounts of construction material, sheetrock, plywood, etc., and piling it up at the end of a rental unit driveway. And I'm not asking for you to solve that problem today. It is a problem. But my question is, I hear most of the conversation today about residential, high grass, cars in driveway, tires at the driveway, appliances.
Yep.
What I didn't hear today is commercial. And I have a very specific request that I've been asking about since 2018, and it's the grocery store at the corner of Wildwood and 9th Street.
Yes.
We had a very bad grocery store, Vest Grocery, which was taken care of. But for some reason, the grocery store that is vastly out of compliance at Wildwood and 9th, we've had multiple organizations offer to turn that back into a viable grocery store for a neighborhood that has a food desert.
Yes.
There are other grocery stores. But yet that grocery store doesn't seem to be changing or improving or anything. It just seems to be sitting there.
Yeah, and there have been various times where property maintenance issues have been dealt with on commercial property. Our focus is more on the residential, you're correct. But from a perspective of a business like that, our hope is that the market, but like you said, there are some bad actors that we can't control. But we're hopeful the market will itself correct a lot of those issues. When that doesn't happen, we do take action. And, commercial is a different animal. You're dealing with somebody who may be, in some cases, we deal with people who are in Texas or wherever, and they don't care if they get cited in court. Because it's an entity out of state, and et cetera. But, and we do deal with that. But I do think that we have been, in the past 6 months, I've been talking about our commercial thoroughfares quite a bit more. So I would expect an increase moving forward as we, in some of that action.
How long's that particular building been without utilities?
I couldn't tell you exactly, but I will find out. I think a considerable amount of time.
Yeah, we've had, Jonathan, tell me if I'm correct, that we've had building,
We had a property maintenance
we have
case.
property maintenance, which is in the building section, and they've had, I think, several code cases, and they've resolved those.
They got them to what's called compliance in the building code. That doesn't mean it aesthetically looks good. That just means it's stable. It's not unsafe, it's just, and it meets the definition of a safe building, but it's not aesthetically pleasing.
That was going to be my next question.
And yeah, so when it becomes structural, that's when my staff turns it over to the building department, who has the correct.
It did have structural deficiencies at one time, but they've addressed them. But that would be more maybe and I'd have to talk to John about that, where the blight or slum type, where it brings down property values around it type case.
Well, that's exactly what we've been talking about, because it was some of the blight of the commercial properties.
Robert, is there anything in state law or local ordinances that makes your job more difficult that other states or other localities might do differently?
Well, there's a number of things. You know, the state of Tennessee has some requirements. I don't know that it makes it more difficult. You know, and some, I'm trying to think of the right way to answer this. No, I don't think it would make it more difficult. Do I think that there are stiffer penalties in other states? Yes.
The $50 is low.
And is that set by the state, or is that set by us?
It's the state
It's the
constitution.
Tennessee Constitution. So
$50 a day.
it's $50 a day, yes. So you can, so if you've been out of compliance for 30 days.
The court has to
that's-
give them a remedial option. If it does, that goes away. If they want to really collect $50 a day, they need to cite them every day. It's just that simple.
Yeah.
So you got, it's a tool.
It is a tool that we have used in critical cases where we're really out there, new ticket every day.
I was gonna say, does the sticker you put on the door say, if you don't clean this up, it's gonna be $50 a day, every
Yes,
day?
Yeah. So that's when people start working, and if they're working towards being compliant, then our position is we're going to work with you. Because that's how I would want to be treated personally. It doesn't make it necessarily great for everybody, but I think in the end result is there. But to answer your question, I don't know if it make it easier, but the Georgia, for instance, has a little more teeth than, and that has a lot to do with our Constitution, and which is tied to a bunch of other things, and probably some of the reasons why a lot of people love it.
Does that $50 a day apply to the commercial as well as
Yes.
residential?
Very few days, I mean, very few. I don't know if anybody that I've heard that it's been laid down $50 a day.
Most of the time, they come into compliance before that ticket gets.
Usually, if they're fined, it's just $50. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, that, I'm not sure, most people, I'm not sure they realize it's 50, it can be. It can be $50 a day, yeah.
Judge Banks does tell them that that's a possibility when they're,
Yeah, when we get to that point.
Robert, have you ever got any tickets for anybody that lives in the county, but they bring their trash and sit it on a piece of somebody else's property?
I don't, I think the answer
Talking
is,
about anything besides tires.
no, I don't have the ability to ticket anybody, but, because we would have to deal with that property owner where it was dumped. So, that is another issue that we come to is, well, they keep dumping on my property, it's not like that.
I've had those kind of calls too.
I know, yeah. We should recommend our county partners do a great job of taking care of their bulk trash.
What is the process if someone's caught doing that?
Caught
What
doing
can we-
that. That's a criminal situation that goes at, so, to catch somebody in the act is very difficult.
I mean,
don't
like
know
if
that we've
the-
ever done it.
If the person that they're dumping on, if they actually get pictures of them,
Right.
or whatever, or can call code and code can come right as there, what's the process? What
That
happen?
would go into a different arena outside of codes, because that's a criminal act. But we would, and the city's bulk trash would end up probably playing a part in that process.
Robert, I know what, we deal with this all the time, you and I.
Yes.
And I appreciate appreciate how much better this has gotten in the last 5 years, 10 years. Real organized, good people, mentality. Yeah, I like the monthly reports. I really do. The one thing you said that I really like, that resonated with me, is institutional knowledge. Because when I look at that and think about that, how much of those are repeat offenders
Yes.
is substantial, and then what tools you have to use with the repeat offenders to disarm and not the public.
Right,
I
right.
think that's so important. I really like that type of approach. I mean, it takes Mr. Kimball, it takes you, it takes communication. It's difficult. I get phone calls too, but I really appreciate all of that. It is better. It is much better than it's ever been.
Yeah, and we want to continue to be better. We've got a lot more things we're looking at and thinking about. I don't know that it's ever going to be perfect. I don't think there's a such thing in this kind of enforcement vein. That's difficult to achieve, but we're at 96%. I think we're close, because 96% of the time I'm keeping people out of the courtroom. That's good, and they are compliant, which is a positive in the overall picture of how we're trying to do this.
Do you, I'm sorry, last question. Do you still have a calendar of sweeps through CDBG territories with the CDBG funding? Because I know we find a position.
That's correct. Yes, yes. And
I see Ms. Andrews in the back.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the question.
he's asking about the CDBG district and the calendar of sweeps and things like, it's a continual sweep. I mean, she's out there every day.
Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Winston.
Yes.
It's,
So I was looking at 1,700 citations through November. That's 8 a day of 5 days a week. That's 40 a week. That's crazy.
I think we had,
1750s, 8 a day, work days, not including weekends.
it was somewhere on here, but yeah, it's, somewhere in that ballpark.
That's all. Thanks, Mayor.
Robert, when you go to the last slide,
Yes,
I
sir.
sorry to make you jump around again, but the 18 and 22% in districts 1 and 2, I'm sorry, 22 and 32%. So 50% of the problems are in 2 districts. Do you associate that with central business district, with the age of these neighborhoods, or?
I associate it with a higher concentration of rental property, and less. When you own something and it's your house, you're going to be more, most of the time, more committed to keeping it at a certain standard. So I think it has something to do with that. I think there's some demographical resemblances, and then I think that number will even out. I think you're going to see some change in that as the city continues to grow the way it is. I do think we're going to see a little bit of a shift.
So once again, when we encourage home ownership, everybody benefits.
I think so. Yes. And that's not to say that all our landlords, it's not a knock on them. There's just, it was mentioned, there's bad actors. And there are some.
Can I jump on and answer to the mayor for that? The second district is by far the smallest geographically. It's less than half the size of some of the districts. Of that, you've got downtown and you've got industry. So that 32% is massive, massively larger than really 32%. What are you talking about? The attention is in the second. I mean, there's so much.
And it is a density question as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
We're talking about more lots per acre than some of the others. So you've got, instead of 2 houses, 6 or whatever it may be. We've got some family situations where nobody knows who owns the property. Those are the hardest ones for us, because we don't know who to go to get this fixed. city's working on a number of great opportunities that are gonna help fix some.
Great. Any other questions or follow-ups for Mr. Brownell? Thank you, Mr. Brownell.
Thank you.
Very informative.
Thank you.
Mr. Fivas, that takes us to the city manager's report. Item number 2.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor and city council members. Appreciated the presentation. We are certainly open to, and we're evolving from a code enforcement standpoint. I will tell you that all of our code enforcement officers do a great job. Joel Prince, who has been elevated, has done a nice job of leading and taking care of a lot of very difficult situations, and he deserves a lot of credit for taking on that leadership opportunity. And I think it was kind of said that, just to button up the code enforcement questions, because code enforcement alone is one of the bundles of things that we need to do, and a lot of the other things that we're doing with the building department and, looking at properties that needed to be taken down. I would say, and we can get you an exact number of the last 5 years, we've probably taken down at least 100 or so, somewhere in their homes, maybe a little less, maybe a little more, of taking down and being vigilant on working on some of these properties. And then you invest in organizations like Habitat for Humanity, City Fields, and then taking those properties and putting out new family-owned properties out there. I think we've seen some progress in those areas. I think like the first district and the second district show better than they have in a long time. I think that there is a distinct difference and because of a lot of the different reasons. But that doesn't to say that other districts have neighborhoods that are in transition, and that's what happens to older neighborhoods, and they transition sometimes to rent or occupied, and we have to always be vigilant and look at making sure that we're trying to keep the property standards up to the highest levels that we can across the community.
I know you're doing a presentation on the thing, but this parlays perfectly to the land bank discussion that we're building on today on the new business. So you may want to touch on it now, or at least let's keep this in our mind when it comes back to that, because this idea of the land bank comes out of this need.
Exactly, it's one of the bundles, and one of the weaknesses that we've talked about internally, and I think it was discussed a little bit earlier, is just the communication aspect of how do we get information in this social media time from the person that has a question on 18th Street to get them to have the right information on what's going on. That's a question that we evolve, and we probably need to, because a lot of things are going away from 5-10 years ago. It was the internet. Well, you just put everything on the internet, and people will go and search it and find what it is. A lot of people aren't using the internet anymore to go find numbers and things, who to call, and a lot of those areas. So we know that we have to evolve and use social media in a way that connects better with residents, with the council, so that you can have information on what's going on. I would say those monthly reports we give you has pretty much all the activities that are currently open. I think it has all the open stuff in there. So I think that that's a useful tool, but giving you a stack of papers, 150 pages, sometimes isn't the best way to be able to communicate that. So those are some of the conversations that we're having internally, is what's the best way to get to the point of what questions being asked and how to disseminate that. So we're very sensitive to that, and I think that this is a good conversation because it makes us better to really hone in on trying to get better information to public elected officials, and so we're working on those things. And I think that and, our system isn't perfect. No system really is. Code enforcement is a wieldy, tricky thing. One thing that makes our code enforcement especially difficult in Cleveland, as opposed to other communities, is, and it was already touched upon, is how we do our solid waste. Go and put trash out there, and some people do it on the wrong days of the week, and some people from different jurisdictions bring trash in and drop it in places, and we have to be very nimble because we have a very well, it's just very broad process. There's some jurisdictions that if you're going to put out a refrigerator or a washer and dryers, that you have to call ahead and schedule a visit, and they come pick it up, and that's the way to regulate that. We choose not to do that for a lot of really good reasons, but that's one of the reasons why code enforcement gets amplified, because we invite people to just put their stuff out on their front of their every week, and people take advantage of that, and sometimes it's difficult to figure that out. So there's a lot of components of that.
Can I make one suggestion on
Yeah.
this? I appreciate you saying you're looking at this, and Christie, I appreciate you sending the monthly reports to me by email, because I forward that frequently, and it's very helpful. But if you're gonna PDF that 100-page document each month, it's so easy to upload it to our website. Say codes reports for January, codes reports for February, so that people can go in and look, rather than me emailing it to them. If it's a public document, if you think that's easy, I think that would be very helpful.
Yeah. There are the new systems that we have in place. Is it Intergo? Is that the right name of it? For code enforcement? Yes. We used to have like 7 or 8 different systems that have been integrated into one. I was making sure that was still one. It has all kinds of bells and whistles, so we're trying to, just as right now, it's been a couple-year process to do our Munis, changing out all of our finance and billing and all that stuff, is we're doing the same thing with Intergov, which was bought at the same time. So there's still bells and whistles that we haven't tapped into, and I think Robert alluded to, is there are bells and whistles that you can make that stuff available online, and we just haven't quite, we're still trying to figure out how it works and what the product flow and who enters the data and who goes back and rechecks the data and all those stuff. So we're looking at all those options.
And I'll carry that one step further from Councilman Estes. In addition to uploading it to the website as a PDF, how easy it would be to do a quick link on Facebook. I don't know who's taken over that from Corey, but I noticed that our colleagues at the county, RFPs, bids, what they post versus what we post. I think we could take ours to the next level and put all of that out there for transparency for people that might not know how to get to the website. If you're on one of your other social media channels, that the city has all of them open, we could just put a link on there and say the latest codes report is available at www. And would make our city government as transparent, and clearly we're doing the work. Clearly, Robert, 96th percentile of compliance. I think that would be a great post right there. Because I get the same calls.
Yeah.
And I've never heard 96%.
One other comment, and that is that I've lived here all my life, just about, in Cleveland, Tennessee. And I want to tell you, it is better. It's better everywhere I go. North, south, east, or west in Cleveland, Tennessee, where I'm around. I can see the changes, and it is better. So congratulations to code enforcement and everybody that supports, you know, the beautification of our city. It's getting a lot better. Because I remember when it was at its worst. I grew up in the 2nd District, and I lived mostly in the 3rd District, you know. But, I mean, it is a lot better. We still have a little ways to go, but there are some things that are going on now that's been mentioned by all of us up here about how little things are happening that it's just no reason for it to be that way. But it is, and we just need to fix those problems and make sure everybody understands that we do have a system in place where they don't have to do what they used to do. They could do things better, you know, by calling and getting some help.
Well, our job isn't any fun if we're not perfect.
Yeah. Much better.
But we do have things to work on, and we're certainly working on those things. With that, any more questions on code enforcement? I want to kick off that we have our new Bee City USA designation. It's a nice little,
That'll create a lot of buzz.
that we intend to post those
Thank you, Rob.
at our parks and along the Greenway, and we'll probably have a second cousin of the Tree City USA
That's awesome.
parks.
Can we put them on the same post, Tree City, Bee City?
Yeah, yeah, they will. So that is the official announcement that I think was actually in the paper, that. Did you get what you needed to?
That's awesome.
The way the Tree City,
Good artistry.
the Tree City USA is actually also going to have the same, or the Bee City USA is going to have the same board as the tree board. We've kind of merged them, and you know, they'll be working on.
Well, bees pollinate trees, so that makes sense.
That does make sense. And we didn't want to create a new board just for the bees.
We don't want to make government bigger.
That's right. So there's that, and if anyone has any objections of putting those on the Greenway,
Great.
in some of our parks, we'll certainly do that. With that, Mr. Mayor, I don't have any additional reports except to ask that, would it be possible, and you can look at your calendars between meetings, to start our meeting on at 12 noon on December 11th and have like a strategic planning update. We'd certainly, we'd probably start at 11:30, have lunch, and just, that was the time we did it last year. If that causes any conflicts, it is December, we could certainly do it at a future meeting, but we would just go through and do some update on some things where we need some decisions from the council as far as from a strategic standpoint. So think about that, and during our break, if there's any conflicts, let us know on that. Besides that, Mr. Mayor, I don't have any other announcements at this time.
All right, we'll just go, any questions from the council on Mr. Fivis's report? If not, let's go right through the review of the agenda.
All right. At 3 o'clock, we have some consent agenda items. We have the final passage of zoning ordinance 2341. This is the zoning, and it's 10 acres or less on Georgetown and Eureka Road, incorporated. It is currently in the county. The zoning would be CH. The county unanimously passed the intergovernmental agreement for this item for us to proceed. So this would finalize that and do that annexation. Item B, which is the zoning ordinance 23-53, zoning 0.52 acres or less on King Street from CH to R2. That's out by the South Walmart, I think King Street is out that direction. And item C is zoning ordinance 2354, zoning the 0.52 acres located on Old Chattanooga Pike from IL to R2. These aren't new houses, these are just rezoning on current properties that are currently being built. Item D, zoning ordinance 2355, zoning of 1.33 acres, property on Tennessee Nursery Road from unincorporated county to R1. And then you have the final pass of zoning ordinance 23-56, zoning 2.16 acres along Georgetown Road from unincorporated county to CH. This was a part of an annexation that was completed at the last meeting, so this would be the final. This would actually be contiguous to the new piece that is next to on Eureka Road. And then you have a motion for the appointment of the Land Bank Authority. We have 3 members in your packet there that certainly we're willing to answer any questions on. Then we have authorization for staff to begin right-of-way purchases for multiple city projects. Those projects are listed in your on your memo. And then for new business, we have the appointments of the council representatives for the Land Bank Authority. At the consent agenda, there's 5 members on the board. We've got 3 applications. So there's 2 seats. One of them has to be filled with a council member. It could be 2 council members. And we wanted to let the council wrestle with that today. If we get the appointments going, we will have an organizational meeting of this authority coming up. We finally, and thank Christy for doing that, it was quite the issue of getting the issue that has the bank in it. That's been resolved. This is, as an authority, would be its own independent thing. They would have to have their own auditors, and we would have to have some level of our own appropriation for seed money to appropriate funds from that. And certainly we have some learning that has to be done. We've spent some time working with Oak Ridge, or having conversations with Oak Ridge on how they operate and have run their land bank authority, and trying to learn from them. But I think, as Councilman Estes indicated, that this is can be a great tool to find parcels of property that are impinged, and we've talked long and about that, but that may not have clear titles. Grandmother passes away to 16 different heirs, and they're all over the country, and you have a piece of property that can't be sold because of those title issues. And even if you go through the tax sale, you still have title issues. This allows us to intervene, and they have the ability to ask for judgments in court, to be able to clean or clear titles, or quiet titles, probably the better term. And I think it can be very helpful in a lot of the issues that we work with. So with that, that's all I have for the agenda. Are there any questions?
Any questions or comments for Mr. Fivas? All right, seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Fivas, for your report and your update or review of the 3 o'clock agenda. That takes us to reports of council members at the 1 o'clock session, or we can move it to 3. Councilman Webb, we'll begin with you.
No, sir.
Thank you, sir. Vice Mayor Johnson?
No, sir, no.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman McKenzie?
No, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Councilman Estes?
Three quick things. Some of my colleagues, there's so many things going on Main Street for the next month. Just FYI, I don't see Sharon here, but excited about that. Tommy, I've gotten a lot of thanks for what you guys are doing for leaves and staying on top of it, and I've seen some new trucks. And I'm amazed, so thank you very much on that. And then I guess maybe to city staff, I guess, direct this to Joe. I know it's front page of the paper, Inman Street Diet, but I just fielded a lot of questions last week that came out, and so just however that's gonna get publicized and laid out, the more we can get that in front of people, the better.
Yes. Yeah, we've been, Seth Sumner is our point person. He's already met with some business going, he's gonna literally go business to business in the downtown to see what the issues are. In fact, we got some questions today, and he's scheduling meetings. So if you do get those questions, and we'll get you Seth's number, he's the point person, just as like when we did the 17th and 20th Street sidewalk projects, he will be the point person. All communications should go through Seth on that issue.
Seth, I hope your skin is thick. But I'm gonna start passing your name around, so that's good. I'm just telling you, there's been a lot of questions.
You said 3 questions?
That was 3 points, that's my third one.
That was third point.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Cassidy.
No, sir.
Thank you, sir. Councilman May.
I'll wait.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Hughes. Thank you. The only comment I had, and Mr. Varnell, if you'll please forgive me for not announcing this when you were at the podium earlier, but you and your staff showing up for the City of Cleveland Celebrity Bagging for the United Way. Although we were not victorious in the City of Cleveland winning, at least the county didn't win again. I'll just leave it at that. But thank you, Robert, for your team. It was a great day and broke their fundraising record for one day for United Way. So we were very thankful that the city had a great team and participated very well. There are no further announcements. We will be adjourned until 3 o'clock.